from my spirit animal. Justine Bateman. I love her. She is my spirit
She's the
animal.
best thing on social media right now.
She is on X or Instagram. She is on fire. She calls out BS in her latest post, which we won't read the article. We will reference it, but I want to share this here from her Insta. She wrote this piece. Let's see, from her Instagram, which is Justine Bateman. Just look her up. For anyone who missed it, my Fast Company op-ed, Hollywood is dead. So let's get into this here. If you would read that, Badger, and we'll go through real quick.
For anyone who missed it, my Fast Company op-ed, Hollywood is dead. About 15 years ago, the studios had become too focused on films that made hundreds of millions of dollars. Streaming services saw an avenue into this business by funding and or buying the projects that the studios had largely forgotten. The mid-range award pieces like House of Cards, Manchester by the Sea, and others. That seemed good for a bit. Then these streaming services, like all tech companies, needed to scale. With an eye toward global expansion, these tech companies needed more content where the audience needn't know the language. And so drama, comedy, rom-coms, and satire, which do not do well internationally, were pushed off, and there was a full embrace of genre. Yeah, and so drama, comedy, rom-coms, and satire. Oh, yeah, sorry. Pushed off. Sorry, of genre. Okay. Content, those genres being action, horror, and thrillers, all easy to follow without knowing the language. They filled out the platform with the inconsequential, plot-free stuff you can have playing in the background as a second screen while you scroll through your Instagram feed, cook dinner, and answer emails on the primary screen of your phone or laptop. I feel attacked and seen at the same time.
Well, she goes on in the Fast Company story. We will link to it. Here she has the visual that accompanies this post is an Oscar inside a coffin, which I think is very telling because this next, with the exception of Dune Part 2, maybe Deadpool and Wolverine, I have no idea how well that movie's going to do. And when it comes to nominations, I think Wicked will dominate. What's your thought on what she's saying? And she has so many great thoughts. Just follow her on X and Instagram. So love to hear what you guys think.
Well, it's weird that she said that Hollywood's focused on making, millions of dollars when it seems like for the past 5 years, they've gone out of their way not to make money. You know what I mean? Right. Like they've done everything but try to make money. Now that, Trump's in office and the culture is changing, maybe some studios are going to start getting back on board with, hey, you know what? Maybe profit should come first. But she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But here's the thing. Hollywood has always been about making money. But it was just that back then we had talented people who, gave us a service, right? They provided a good product and we bought that product. But that hasn't been the case for I'm not going to say that, but it's not been what it used to be.
No, it's been mitigated heavily because the studios have found a way to basically no longer have to worry about arguing with a creative artist anymore because there's so many people that want that position. They can just push you aside and grab someone else to fill the role. That's basically it. There's no director or screenwriter or actor who's got this huge, deep vision for a project that they want to do that has the clout or leverage on their side to get that done the way it needs to be done in order for them and the studio to benefit. Now it's just coming from the top down. The studio says, we're going to do this movie and we're going to select these people to do it. And if they have a creative vision that doesn't fall in line with ours, well, we can just push them aside because there's so many people that want that job. We can find another person that will do what we want.
Even How to Train Your Dragon, the director said, I'm only doing it because they were going to do it anyway. So I might as well be the one to do it.
Right, he did.
Fair point. Yeah. And that's the culture that they've done now. There's no, Hollywood always goes through various changes every generation. And those changes come by of exciting filmmakers that want to experiment, that have managed to prove themselves on their own in the independent circuit that gets brought into Hollywood and gives it fresh new blood. But we haven't had that this generation. And the attempts that have been made for that to come through have been subsidized with social media and internet and streaming. And Hollywood has chosen not to compete. Instead, they decided to chase after the Netflix model, which has now been detrimental to them because Netflix was designed to basically just get rid of the video store. And then Hollywood came in and said, oh, now we're just going to get rid of physical media altogether. And those are very reliable sales.
But we also don't have a pipeline to nurture creators into Hollywood. You had like in the 90s, you had the explosion of video directors. David Fincher came out of the propaganda video, or propaganda films was one of the biggest commercial and home video companies. Pardon me, one of the most commercial and music video companies in Hollywood. And you had people like everybody from Michael Bay and Fincher came out of there. Other lesser people like Dominic Sena came out of there. And these were filtering, music video directors were being filtered in because they were learning their craft. And the same was true of indie filmmakers. Just like we saw on the list of 82, you had people that were making sleazy exploitation. I mean, hell, Martin Scorsese got started making movies like Boxcar Bertha, and De Palma was making like Hi Mom, and they were cutting their teeth making low budget indie films that were also getting theatrically released, and they worked their way up as they honed their craft.
I mean, even James Gunn worked for Troma. So I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And that was back in the 90s. There's none of that. Even like I worked at Full Moon Entertainment and in the 90s, and you had Corman down in Venice, and Full Moon was in Glendale on San Fernando Road, and we were making a movie a month there. And you had people coming out of that. I mean, I recut a David Goyer movie that he had written. And he goes on to write The Dark Knight. We don't even have that anymore. There's no place where new filmmakers are being able to make films and see them theatrically released, even though there's a lot of people out there making movies, but there's nobody who is seeing their films getting theatrically. There's not even a market to get, as Judge Nora, which didn't it win the Palme d'Or or something, and it won Toronto. Nobody even knew it was coming out. And it's like one of the best movies of the year, and it's no one knows it's there.
That also comes into what you said earlier, and what I've been saying since I got on the internet is that marketing just doesn't know how to sell anything, and they get away with it by saying we don't know how to sell this, and they're still hired. And what's, to your point, is tragic is that Ron Howard and Brian Grazer, I think about 5-6 years ago, they started basically a pipeline for getting new creatives to become directors and writers and whatnot called Imagine Impact, and it failed, primarily because when you take a look at who they picked to get, this essentially this easement to learn and develop and pitch and put into production, it was all part of the very same groups that were actually doing terrible damage to Hollywood, the agenda-driven ones, the checkbox-driven people. He had this great opportunity and had a ton of money back behind it and investors behind it, and it burned out incredibly fast, so much so that I think that failure is one of the reasons why Ron said, I'm retiring early, because he just couldn't find that next generation that he needed, aside from his daughter, who is really like, sadly she's mitigated to Disney Plus stuff, but she's got an eye that we really should.
Yeah, Bryce is pretty talented now.
Yeah.
But why isn't she being given a big studio feature to direct?
She's directing an episode of Skeleton Crew.
Exactly. That's horrible, because she's
better than that.
Experience, and she's better than that. Yes, 100%.
And Justine Bateman, by the way, directed an indie movie starring Olivia Munn that was at South by Southwest. I don't know if it ever came out.
By the way, did you see how she was reviewing people's Trump victory meltdown videos?
Yes, it was hilarious.
It was one of the funniest things of the year.
It
really was.
It, like, analyzing it like it's cinema.
High art.
It was fantastic. But I think part of it is audiences are trained. And I think audiences learn by what you show them. And there are differences between, there's a culture around an art house theater, for example, right? Or like a Lemley or a Alamo Draft House. The audience gets trained to like certain things. And I think now when you look at mainstream, whether it's Regal, AMC, Cinemark, or whatever, they've trained their audience to, you're going to get the next Marvel this, the sequel this. That's what they sell.
Chris.
And anything unfamiliar is difficult to sell.
But that's not the theater's fault, though.
But there is a studio that's actually doing that, and it's working, and it's A24.
Yes.
A24, especially younger audiences. I've never heard people talk about a studio the way people talk about A24.
There's a total
cult, but you're getting filmmakers like Robert Eggers coming out of there.
Right.
His fourth film is Nosferatu. I mean, he's a talent. When I saw The Witch, I'm like, this guy's a genius in terms of how he understands how to make mood. Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of the guys that came out of, Ari Aster, varying degrees of success. I mean, I don't know if Beau is Afraid is going to make people believe that he should be developing tentpole properties. But, you know, we do have a younger generation of filmmakers who are out there, and they, you know, and sometimes they make the wrong move, like Damien Chazelle making a Babylon, or Robert Eggers making The Northman, which is a kick-ass movie, but not for $90 million. It's not.
Well, I like A24. They actually have a fan club where they send you a free gift.
It's awesome.
And it's I joined, I paid. It's, you know, and you get invites to screenings, free movies. It pays for itself, basically.
And for your birthday, they sent me a thing, pick anything out of our store, and I bought a Blu-ray from them, and they sent it to me free of charge. I didn't even have to pay for
Man, you must get something like every day, Rob.
Happy
I
birthday.
do. I do. I got a box from the UK today, as a matter of fact.
That's, well, look, I really respect Justine for speaking out. I feel like he is speaking into the void. There is so much damage has been done, like streaming, that cannot be undone. So I don't know how Hollywood gets out of this. It has become, as you've said, Rob, it's not the art form of the 21st century. That's gaming.
I'll tell you how to get out of it, man. Like I said, Trump winning has given these studios a way out, man. Trump winning, it's not that he won. It shows where the culture is at, though, right? That means Hollywood can go back to just making good movies and not have to worry about checking boxes. They could just write good stories, make good movies, and people will go watch those movies.
But the keep speaking out.
The executives, though, who have to pick which movies are going to get made, they don't know.
Right.
And that's the real problem is they were not, you know, when I worked at Warner Brothers in the early 90s, the story department there and the executives there were all pretty savvy people. And now the people that are running the studios more than ever are all Ivy League educated business people that don't know anything about story. They didn't even grow up. The executives were always in their late 20s, early 30s, maybe into their early 40s, because they tended to be younger. There weren't a lot of old executives at Warner Brothers at least 30 years ago. No one today are movie fans. They don't know movies. They don't know stories. They don't even read books. So they can't sit there and go, you know, like, I don't understand why no one's done Donna Tartt's A Secret History as a film yet. Why hasn't David Fincher made that movie? I don't know. But if somebody said to me, you know, Rob, give me 10 books, I could give you 10 books that should be adapted tomorrow. And we're getting something like, we're getting Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, which I hope is going to be one of the best movies of 2025, because I love that book. But it's amazing that movie got made. And the only reason it got made was because The Martian was good. But, you know, we don't have anybody that knows what to do in Hollywood now.
Yeah, the problem is, one, we've talked about this, activists is one. And two, people coming in, like you said, Ivy League, they could work at any company, whether you make widgets or clothing brand, or it doesn't matter. It's a generic education.
But Hollywood is still got the glamour, they think.
It does, but it helps to have those points of reference. I know in our friend circle, I can hang out with you, Rob, and Paul Salamoff, or other people that we know, everyone on the stream, and we can throw out weird references that you just get it. There's a scene in your movie, Free Enterprise, where a bunch of dudes playing basketball, horribly, by the way, they're terrible, and throwing out movie references. That was based on real things that we did. Yeah. We played basketball on Sundays. None of us were good. Yeah. We did it to say we played basketball.
I mean, we played. It was beach volleyball too. Saturdays at Manhattan Beach.
Whole conversations where we never uttered an original sentence. It was all a movie reference, and we'd all know what we were saying.
And a lot of those people that movie was based on went on to become very successful in Hollywood. That's because right. they worked because everyone who came here in the late 80s, early 90s worked. We were all fanatics and worked our ways up into various places in the industry. But nowadays, there's no culture. If you're a kid, let's say you were born in 2000, what is it that would inspire you to want to go into Hollywood and make movies? There was not, when we were kids, like the films of 1982, that was life-changing. Every time you went to the movies, it was magic. It didn't matter whether you were seeing Vice Squad or Blade Runner. In 1 year, you could see Tootsie, and I loved Tootsie when I saw it. Arthur, hilarious. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Every single time you went to the movies themselves were magical. They were so wildly diverse, not in terms of who was in them, but that was true too. People just forget that. It was also the stories that were being told. Nowadays, if you're a kid, how are you ever going to be inspired by half the movies that come out? How? If you're seeing sequels to things that you weren't even alive when the first movie came out, how is that supposed to be part of your youth?
Well, I'll say this, having worked at a tech company, and I know we all, in some way, if you are doing a YouTube channel, you work in tech in some way. And I feel that what's also ruining Hollywood is everything is data driven. Choices are data driven. And when everything, I don't think creativity can be data driven. But when you look at the numbers and data, that's how choices are being made. Not because Alan Ladd on a whim thinks this goofy kid, and George Lucas was a kid when he made Star Wars. It's crazy to think you would roll the dice on some kid with some wild idea. And he did. And it was a whim. It was a feeling. It was, that doesn't exist anymore.
But remember, even George Lucas was coming off the success of American Graffiti, which was a movie made for less than $1 million that made $150 million at the box office. And even Universal, with that success, didn't want to make Lucas's sci-fi movie.
And he was so naive. He forgot that, you have to get the rights to those songs. We have to
Flash
like
Gordon.
that was, he didn't know. He was learning, I mean, he made weird docs and experimental films and stuff.
I feel like there's an economic angle to this as well. Like, it seems like the big studios, they're looking to hit home runs every time, meaning they want to make movies that make $500 million, and they'll accept nothing less than that. And that versus making a movie for $10 million and getting a $50 million return. It just seems like that the reason the big studios is dying, and because they're going to sequels, is that they need that surefire hit that's going to get them to that $500 million. And it seems like it's not this model that's not sustainable.
That's like a content creator who has a video go viral and then they make another video on that same thing, expecting it to get the same pop. It didn't. You got it.
That's exactly
now wait
right.
for the next one. You have to just
Or say if you put out a video about the Acolyte and then you like 50 other videos on the Acolyte.
Yeah. People don't care
then,
after the second or third one, basically.
Some of us did.
Oops.
Oh God.
Well, and also,
it's like an inverse of the Moneyball, right? Like, how do you Moneyball Hollywood? It's really hard to do because the functions of everyone involved in making a great film are not as calculable as what the Wall Street thinks. It just
and I want to. Go ahead, Script.
No, that's it. Sorry.
I was going to say I was going to piggyback off of Rob. I agree. I think there's just not enough people on the executive level who are making these kind of the right decisions. Anyway, it's like Hollywood went from being a business to a support group. You know what I mean? Like they went to this weird place of, hey, even on an executive level, right? Like we always make fun of executives, right? We always say that they're clueless, brain dead, and for the most part, they are. But at least they used to be people who were brain dead, but they knew film. Now they don't even know film anymore.
No, they don't.
So now they're just totally useless.
Well, I mean, I just keep going back to that list we showed from 1982 and look at how many, and all of those movies were theatrically released.
Yeah.
All of those films.
Because even back in the day, Rob, even like in the 90s, we used to make fun of executives all the time. So it's not, it's not like we're lifting up executives. We've always given them a hard time, but at least they knew their stuff back then.
Yeah, we don't even have, I mean, if you think about the great producers, I mean, of course, Jerry Bruckheimer is still around, but the great moguls that we have that were running the mini majors or that were even running even the guys running the studios, they were legendary. And nowadays, I mean, they're all on their way out. I mean, they're dinosaurs and there's nobody coming up to replace them. Now we have guys like David Zaslav who are sharks. They don't care what business they're in. They just happen to be in the entertainment business. David Zaslav famously knew nothing about Hollywood when Discovery merged with Warner Brothers. And he was going around asking, he was smart about this, but he was asking everybody that would tell him, how does the business work? But then we've seen things. They've gotten rid of 2 movies in Batgirl and Coyote versus Acme, which is stunning. because the directors of Batgirl went on to make Bad Boys Ride or Die. But the Coyote movie was, by all accounts, a good movie. And then they gave their latest Warner Brothers animated film, they got rid of that too. It's going to be on streaming from a company that isn't Warner Brothers. And like, who's calling these shots? This never would have happened 20 years ago.